Hello and welcome to the Daily Aus. I'm Emma Gillespie.
I'm Lucy Tassell.
After months of delays, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has met with the US President Donald Trump at the White House this week. There was plenty to talk about during the pair's first formal meeting since Trump's re-election last year, with a major deal on critical minerals, progress on AUKUS, and a tense moment between the US President and former PM Kevin Rudd. Today, we are going to break down what happened, why it matters, and what comes next.
Emma, the Prime Minister, as you said, is in Washington, D.C., the US capital, this week for a meeting with Donald Trump. That, to me, feels like it has been a very long time coming.
Yeah, you are absolutely right, Lucy. Trump was re-elected in November last year, which means it's been nearly a year since his re-election, which is crazy to think about. But in that time, so much has happened, including Albanese winning re-election in May in that landslide result for Labor, Trump's tariffs, which continue to create a lot of uncertainty around the world, and global conflicts, which have intensified and evolved and continue to do so. Albanese and Trump have spoken on the phone several times in that last kind of nearly a year. They did have a brief meeting on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly last month, but this was their first formal sit-down meeting at the White House.
Over the course of that almost a year, several planned meetings fell through ahead of those talks this week. Can you walk me through what happened each time that kind of almost happened and then didn't?
There were multiple failed attempts to make this happen. As you rightly mentioned, Lucy, there was a meeting that was planned during the G7 summit in Canada earlier this year. That was cancelled because of escalating violence between Israel and Iran. So Donald Trump left those talks early. Then in September, when Albanese was at the UN in New York, he was expected to be included on Trump's schedule of bilateral meetings, but that did not come to fruition despite Trump meeting with other world leaders at that time. And these delays had a bit of a political fallout here in Australia. There was some controversy over recent months with many of the Prime Minister's political opponents questioning why this was taking so long, especially given the relationship between Australia and the US. You know, we're talking about one of our oldest and closest allies. We've fought alongside them in every major conflict for over a century. And this is a relationship that's considered incredibly important for a raft of reasons, you know, including from an economic, security, diplomacy, and trade standpoint.
So what changed? Why did we finally kind of make this happen?
Well, both leaders over the course of all these kind of cancellations and delays had downplayed there being any political reason stopping this meeting from happening, basically that it was a scheduling issue. But there have been several pressing issues that have emerged in recent months, really requiring or intensifying the need for this face-to-face discussion.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, trade tariffs, the AUKUS submarine deal, and China's recent moves to tighten restrictions on critical minerals.
I want to talk about those specific issues. Maybe let's go through them one by one, starting with critical minerals.
So this meeting resulted in the signing of a really significant critical minerals and rare earths agreement. It's kind of being hailed as the headline achievement, I guess, by Labor of Albanese's US visit. The Prime Minister described it as, quote, a landmark bilateral framework that will see an accelerated pipeline of priority projects delivered by and for the two nations. That includes $13 billion of ready-to-go projects, in Albanese's words, to expand Australia's mining and processing abilities.
Before we go any further, can you explain a little bit more about what's a critical mineral, what's a rare earth element?
This is one of those kind of news topics or political issues I think often assumes a lot of knowledge, but plenty of people out there probably don't know what we're actually talking about here. So
some people perhaps in this room who might need a little bit of a refresh.
I'm not too proud to admit that I did not know a whole lot about this before this year, but the term critical minerals refers to materials that are deemed essential for modern technology and manufacturing. So for example, lithium, cobalt, titanium, nickel, those sorts of things.
Yeah.
And they're materials needed to make a lot of the products and items that we rely on in our everyday lives. So electronics, smartphones, batteries, electric vehicles, clean energy tech, so solar panels, as well as defense technologies.
Okay.
They're called critical because they're considered crucial for economic and national security, but they're prone to supply chain disruption and can be difficult to obtain.
Yeah.
So that's critical minerals. Rare earth elements are a specific subset of critical minerals. So think of them as kind of being beneath that critical mineral umbrella.
Yeah.
Despite the name, though, they're actually not that rare.
Oh.
In terms of their presence in the Earth's crust. The problem is that rare earth elements are in high demand.
I see.
And they're very difficult and very expensive to extract and process. China, really important point here, currently dominates the rare earth minerals market. It controls about 70% of the mining and 90% of the processing of rare earth elements globally.
Yeah.
And as we know, US and China tensions have really escalated over the past several months as part of this kind of ongoing trade war. So China recently tightened export controls on these materials. That was seen as a strategic move in this kind of escalating trade tension tariff war that is ongoing.
So how does Australia fit into this picture?
Hi, I'm Ola.
And I'm Elliot.
We're the two-person team behind everything video and audio here at the Daily Aus.
If you want to help us grow so we can deliver more of the content that you love, be sure to hit subscribe.
Now let's get back to the video.
Well, in the government's own words, Australia is, quote, richly endowed with mineral resources. We are a major exporter of these raw materials.
Yeah.
But according to a recent government policy paper, Australia currently lacks, quote, a well-developed value-adding capability for critical minerals and their products, but is looking to increase this capability.
So Australia has these minerals that the US needs, but it also needs the money to export them to the US.
Exactly. So this deal is kind of being spruiked by both countries as one that includes commitments to really benefit both sides. Australia has the goods, we need help to export them, and America needs to import them for its manufacturing and products, and it's finding it increasingly difficult to do that business with China.
What's Trump said about all of this?
He's been pretty enthusiastic about this agreement, it should be said. You know, he noted that it had been in the works for about 4 or 5 months, and negotiations wrapped just in time for Albanese's visit. Trump told reporters this week, quote, in about a year from now, we'll have so much critical mineral and rare earths that you won't know what to do with them.
You've also mentioned AUKUS, just going through our little bullet-pointed list. What's the latest there?
Yeah, this was a major topic of discussion as well. Quick refresher, AUKUS is that security partnership between Australia, the United Kingdom and the United States. And under the partnership, Australia is set to acquire at least 3 nuclear-powered submarines from the US in what's considered a massive, massive deal worth about $240 billion.
Yeah.
But AUKUS has kind of been under a shadow of doubt over recent months. After Trump returned to the White House, his administration launched a review of AUKUS. We weren't sure if that meant that the US was wavering on this deal.
Yeah.
But it seems that that has all been cleared up. Foreign Minister Penny Wong said after the meeting between Trump and Albanese that Trump has provided assurances on AUKUS, and she called the meeting a great success.
We've heard so much about how Trump's tariffs might impact Australian exporters. Did the leaders discuss trade at their meeting?
Yeah, it would have been impossible for tariffs not to come up. So Australia currently is facing a baseline 10% tariff on most goods that it exports to the US. But Aussie steel and aluminium face a heftier 50% tariff. Pharmaceuticals face a 100% levy. This has been a really big sticking point for the coalition in terms of getting Albanese face-to-face with Trump. When asked whether the US would lift tariffs on Australia, Trump defended his trade policies. He said that, quote, Australia pays among the lowest tariffs of any country. So there wasn't huge progress or development on tariffs. The government is expected to continue working for relief, but this won't be the last time we hear about it.
We can't wrap this up without talking about a fairly awkward moment between Trump and former Prime Minister Kevin Rudd. Can you explain what happened there?
As Australia's ambassador to the United States, former Prime Minister Kevin Rudd attended a meeting as part of these talks. So he was in the room with Albanese, Trump, some other officials, and also a press pack of journalists. And it was during questions by those reporters that one Aussie journo asked Trump specifically if he had any concerns about Rudd. And here is what happened.
Have you had any concerns with this administration, with its stance on Palestine, climate change, or even things the ambassador said about you in the past, the Australian ambassador?
I don't know anything about him. I mean, if he said bad, then maybe he'll like to apologize. I really don't know. Did an ambassador say something bad about him? Don't tell me. I don't. Where is he? Is he still working for you?
Yeah.
You said bad?
Before I took this position, Mr. President,
I don't like you either. I don't, and I probably never will.
Some important context here is that Rudd was a vocal critic of Trump before he took on the role of ambassador. So, for example, he's called Trump the most destructive president in history, a traitor to the West, a village idiot. That was all prior to him accepting the job. But Trump has also previously said that Rudd is nasty, quote, not the brightest bulb.
Okay.
There is history there. But I think it's also really important to note that, while that was the big viral moment of the meeting, apparently after that exchange, reporters who were present said that Rudd apologized to Trump. Trump said something in the nature of all is forgiven, and they shook hands and kind of brushed it off.
Okay. How has the coalition responded to everything?
Well, opposition leader Susan Lee has been quite vocal about the Rudd situation specifically.
Yeah.
She told Sky News that Rudd's position as ambassador is now untenable after he was so publicly chastised and rebuked by the US president. Lee also said that it was a failure on Rudd's part that it took so long for this meeting to happen, almost a year to secure those conversations. So she is continuing to question his position as ambassador. But on the meeting more broadly, Lee called it a good start. She said the coalition welcomed the rare earths minerals deal and added there was much more work to be done. On the whole, though, Lucy, it does kind of seem like Albanese's visit has been broadly judged as a successful one.
Okay.
Albeit, with a couple of hiccups and an awkward viral moment.
Thanks so much for breaking that down, Emma. That is all for today's deep dive. We'll be back this afternoon with the headlines. Until then, have a great day.